Talk about the dollar and cents aspect of this. If an installer or if a recruit is interested, how does he get from here to there? What are the dollars and cents?
That's great. My belief is we all need to step up and welcome these guys into our business. I also believe that everybody ought to have a little skin in the game. I don't think this needs to be a free program. Some of the other programs that have failed in the past, those were free programs, and they failed. So let's don't repeat that. So here's the way we set this up. We are going to Shaw, Mohawk, Beaulieu, Maslin. We're going to all the carpet manufacturers, and we're going to explain the program to them. And what we're going to ask them for is we're going to ask them for a little bit of a cash donation to help us set the program up. Everybody needs a little cash. But mostly what we're going to ask those guys for is we're going to ask them to fund scholarships. So let me kind of blend two things together here, and I hope this doesn't get messy. It's better with charts. But we're going to take what's basically a $5,000 class. And for a $5,000 class, if that kid from Cincinnati or Boston or Charlotte or wherever it is, if he'll get to Dalton, Georgia on a Sunday afternoon before we start on Monday morning, from that point forward for the next 30 days, we're going to pay his room rent. We're going to feed him 3 meals a day. We're going to treat him nice. He's going to walk away with a nice big toolbox with all of his basic hand tools in it. We're going to work him like a dog for 6 days a week for the next 4 weeks. But he won't have any out-of-pocket expenses. The class is $5,000. We're asking the mills to support scholarships. And my goal is to have at least a 50% scholarship for every kid that wants to sign up. So right off the top, if you send me somebody from Cincinnati and we sign that kid and we're going to do a background check on them, as long as they don't have a felony, they're welcome. And we're going to bring them into the program. We're going to say it's a $5,000 bill. If you pass, if you stick with us for a month, we're going to get you a 50% scholarship, courtesy of Shaw or Mohawk or Beaulieu or whoever's the next scholarship in the list. And so there goes half of it. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to say if you need help with the other half, we'll let you sign a note for half of half. So for a quarter of it. For another $1,250, you can sign a note, and when you go to work, when we place you, because we're offering guaranteed placement, when we place you at the end of the program, after you've been to work a month, we're going to debit your debit card $25 a week until you're paid back. We're willing to invest that in these kids, which leaves us another $1,250, and that's the skin they have to have in the game. If they can't get grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, mom, dad, college fund, whatever it is, if they can't get somebody to put up $1,250 and pass a background check, then they probably are not going to get to come. But if they can come up with $1,250 and commit to getting to Dalton, Georgia, we'll take care of all of their living expenses, all of their overhead expenses. We'll give them a beautiful Cobalt toolbox when we're done that has all their basic hand tools. And while I'm talking about the toolbox, let me mention one thing. I want this to be the best darn helper that installer ever had. What I don't want him to be is I don't want him to think he's an installer. So there's not going to be a seam iron in that toolbox. There's not going to be a knee kicker, and there's not going to be a power stretcher. That's not part of the program. It's all the basic hand tools that they're going to need. There's going to be, hammers and wrenches and everything else that they need to keep their program together. But I don't want them going home saying, "Oh, I'm good enough. I can circumvent the system." I don't want that. What we want is we want them to go back and to make a meaningful relationship with that mentor that works, has a good working relationship with that Carpet One dealer or with that Floor Covering Association dealer. And we want them to stay there for 6 months and learn the trade. One other thing that we haven't talked about is we're going to start the program and limit them to just carpet. And my friend Dave Keller says it this way. Every trade has its own toolbox. And what we don't want to do is we don't want to confuse them. If that kid comes through school and one day we're making him install vinyl and the next day we're making him install carpet and the next day, now that's the way the real world is. But we believe that there's an awful lot of carpet to be installed. We believe that carpet installers are probably where there's the greatest need right now. There's plenty of work there, so there's plenty of work there to be done.
Do you ever see getting into other products?
We absolutely do. We may add during the final week of the class, because again, this class is all hands-on. It's 6 hours a day. It's actually in the mock-ups, doing seams and running the power stretcher and all that stuff. But what we may do to kind of break things up is maybe every Friday we'll just give them a little bit of a taste of vinyl. And next Friday we'll give them a little bit of taste of LVT. And next Friday we'll show them what hardwood looks like or laminate looks like. We're going to work in just a taste of everything, but we don't want to have another toolbox full of tools, because the hardwood tool set is a little different tool set than the carpet tool set. And we also don't want to dilute their learning. We want them to get really good at one thing, and that is be the best darn carpet helper I can get. In the real world, that carpet layer's got to take pretty much whatever comes to him most days. And most carpet layers try to specialize. If they're a hardwood guy, they like doing hardwood. They've got hardwood tools. But if business gets tough, a lot of times they'll pull out that power stretcher if they have to.
So the installer that will end up with this helper,
Yes.
do you have any control over that? I mean, is this guy going to be a reasonably talented guy, do you think, or?
Here's the way we're going to do it, and the one thing I can tell you is there's holes in every program. No program works 100% all the time, and there's certainly holes in this, and this is probably one of the weaker spots. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to work with the dealer. We're going to call that Carpet One dealer, that Flooring America dealer, and we're going to say, you've got a kid coming back in 2 weeks who just lost their helper this week. Because I used to run an office for Keller in Charlotte. We'd send out about a dozen installers every day out of Charlotte. And on any given week, I can tell you, somebody walked in the morning and said, hey, I just lost my helper this morning. So helpers is a huge turnover, because we're not really very good at recruiting. No. We just gather whoever was standing on the corner or whoever slept over at our house last night, that becomes our new helper. So there's always plenty of opportunity to place helpers. And if I can convince that installer that just lost his helper that I'm going to give him a guy that was specifically wants to be here, has been trained, has some skills, and can actually make you faster and better today, that's about all I can do. Because of IRS rules and so on, we really can't do too much beyond that.
Is there any option for that recruit, the helper, to learn after he's away from your facility?
Absolutely, absolutely. What we hope, if we design the perfect program, that doesn't mean anybody's going to adhere to it, but if we design a perfect program, here's what we would really like. We would love to have these guys for a month. Now, in that month, they're going to learn basic skills. They're going to learn the basic tool list. They're going to learn to use all those tools and what they are and how they work and everything. They're going to learn to do measuring, estimating. They're going to learn basic business skills. They're going to learn all of these basic fundamentals. And the nice thing about that is when they come back to learn hardwood, we don't have to teach all of those fundamentals anymore. They already know those things. So now all I got to do is focus on getting them to have golden hands.
Yeah.
So the hardwood class may only be a week. The sheet vinyl class
But they will
may
come
only be a
back
week.
at some point or
But that's
another
right.
on down
Every
the road.
quarter, we're going to offer another 1 week add-on class so that they can kind of expand their skill set. Because quite frankly, what a lot of guys will do is they'll say, well, I can stay kind of busy with carpet, but carpet doesn't pay as good as hardwood. But I can't stay busy with hardwood. Fine, come back, go through our hardwood class, work 3 days a week or 4 days a week at carpet, because that gives you good cash flow. And then when that one juicy plum of a job comes through each week for hardwood, go take that job, because now you've been given a week's worth of skill set to at least have a good understanding of it, and go take that job, and now we've kind of mixed the income stream.
Is there an online aspect to this?
There will be an online aspect of this. Pretty much everything we do we'll videotape, and we'll edit it and put it online. There'll be a curriculum that goes along with it and so on. But our goal is not to have an online training program. I'm very much of the opinion, and I'm biased, and I don't know that I'm right, but this is my job, and I'm going to do it the best way I can. I don't think we're going to teach carpet installers how to install carpet online. I just don't think that's going to happen. Now, could a new salesperson who has some good selling skills, but they have no idea what they're talking about when it comes to getting the job installed, could they take our course and go through it online? Sure, yeah, that might work. Or a guy has a refresher, he just can't quite remember how that Berber seam had to go together,
Yeah.
or the little tricks of the trade we taught him. He'll be able to go online and click through that.
What I was getting at was if the installer who he ends up helping
Yes.
perhaps has some good skills and some not so good skills, would there be some place he can go to, go to the man and find out?
Well, and we've had a lot of conversations about this. I'm optimistic that we're going to train some really great young guys and girls. We believe that there aren't very many women in our trade, and we're going to make a real effort to bring women, minorities, a lot of the faces we don't see right now. If you go down to the carpet supply house every morning like I did when I was doing recruiting, and you look at the guys coming in and out, see an awful lot of Hispanic guys, awful lot of white guys, and that's pretty much it. And what we need is we need to open that up, and so we're going to go after those folks and try to bring them in. And here's one of the things that we've decided: we're just going to have this kind of birds and bees talk almost. We're just going to have to tell these guys, the guy you're working for, he's the master. He's your mentor. Don't go in and tell him he's doing something wrong just because we didn't do it that way in school.
Yeah. What kind of an organization will FAST be? Is it a profit, nonprofit?
That's a great question, and I'm glad you asked that. One of the things when people start putting up money to support anything, a lot of times there's the real temptation for, okay, I'm going to give you some money, but there's strings attached to it. One of the very first things that the Lowe's folks said when they offered to put up the original seed money for us, they said, we don't want our name on it. We don't seek any advantage. We don't want you recruiting people and sending them all to us. We believe that filling the pool, there's an old saying that's, a rising tide floats all ships. Well, that's their view. And they were very adamant, and to the point that I was given a statement in writing that said, we want to be a sponsor, we don't want to be the sponsor, and we don't seek any advantage from our sponsorship. So it does, other than me trying to be up front and tell everybody, yeah, we got a little bit of seed money from those folks. We will work with their installed vendors, but only to the extent that they want to take advantage of the recruiting and having us do their training and send them back. It is I believe it's a 501(c) is the way that designation works. We are a nonprofit. I'm going to be the managing director. I'm going to be the lead instructor. I'm going to write the curriculum and so on. I've done a lot of training for a lot of different companies over the years, and it's the sweet spot in my career for me. It's what I love to do. We are going to be a nonprofit organization. None of the big boxes, none of the trade associations, none of the co-ops own anything. Our agreement is, if you would like to support us, we'll market with you, we'll help you, we'll develop programs for you, with you, and about you, but they don't own any part of this. It is a standalone organization. We have a board of directors. I report to the board. I'm on the board, and I run the day-to-day operations, but I don't own anything here. I get a paycheck just like everybody else.
I see. How many recruits do you see being brought in and can go through this whole process?
I've done enough training over the years that there's a magic that happens in any class, and I don't care whether it's sales training or product training or skills training, whatever it is. There's kind of a spirit that kind of when everything gels and comes together. And if the class is too small, you never get to that wonderful inertia. If the class is too big, then the group kind of divides off into factions, and that's hard too. We'll have 4 full-time professional trainers. We'll have me and 3 other guys that do wonderful work. I can't tell you who they are because right now they're still working for somebody else. But they're great, experienced trainers. One of the guys is a
a fellow from South America, and he speaks Spanish as his first language, but his English is better than mine, so we'll have the benefit of having a Spanish speaker on. But we believe that the average class size will be about 30. So somewhere between 25 and 32 or 33 is what we would love to have. We're gonna use that as our mock-up number, if you will. We've got plenty of 12,000 square feet of mock-up space. We've got plenty of space to do this, and 30 we think is a really good number. If it turns out that we've got enough space and enough skill set, and the guys kind of find their own way and so on, and doing their work every afternoon, we may raise that number a bit. One of the things that almost everybody I've talked to has encouraged me about is they've said, number one, we need to know where you're going to open the second one. They'd like to see one on the west and then one in the northeast. And so that's good. That's a lot of people having a lot of faith in us. And I think that'll be a good thing. But for the first year, I've told everybody, let's don't even talk about that. Let's worry about getting at least 30 people a month through here. Let's worry about getting Dalton established, get the curriculum written, get all, come do our shakedown cruise here, shoot all the video that we will need, because once we go to Southern California or the West Coast, we won't have the benefit of the mill tours and so on. So we'll gather all of those pieces, we'll work them out here, we'll work all the training materials through here, and we'll do that here with classes of about 30.
So that would be how many total trained?
I assume that December is pretty much shot because of the holidays and so on. Also, just because of the way the calendar lays out, we're going to shoot for 10 to 11 classes a year, and so that gives us 300 plus.
Okay.
And that's the first year. During the second year, we think we can probably sandwich a few other things in. We think we can add these 1 week classes every quarter, because quite frankly, a hardwood class could be going on over on that corner of the work area while the carpet class is going on over here. So we may be able to do two things at once. We think the second year will probably be a 500 plus through in the Dalton facility.
What sort of reaction have you gotten so far? I have to imagine it's positive, or we wouldn't be sitting here talking. So.
To be perfectly blunt with you, the first thing everybody says is, it's been tried, it's failed repeatedly, what makes you think you're so bright? And I said, well, what if we start with the things the other guys got right and acknowledge those? And what if we be very objective and say, these are the things that we didn't get right? So they weren't very good on publicity, they weren't very good, they didn't have the recruiting piece down at all. And the other thing they didn't have, nobody ever had placement. Let me tell you a quick story. Delta Airlines, many years ago, for well up into the 80s, if you wanted a job at Delta Airlines, you went to the military taught you to fly big airplanes, and when you mustered out, you took your $28,000 a year flying job for the Air Force, and you went over to Delta and you cashed it in for a $100,000 a year job flying right seat in 727s. And all of a sudden, when all of those old military pilots started getting too old and started mustering out, and there weren't nearly as many of them, Delta started looking around going, there's going to be a pilot shortage. And sure enough, there was a significant pilot shortage back during the 80s and early part of the 90s. And Delta's response was, I think, the perfect response. They went and bought a flight school. And the problem with running a flight school wasn't that people didn't want to learn to fly. It cost $50,000 to learn to fly, and we couldn't guarantee you a job at the end. Delta fixed that. They bought their own flight school, and they sent their recruiters out and they said, if you'll come to our flight school, we're going to take your $50,000. But at the end, we'll guarantee you a seat flying some small twin prop out of Cincinnati on the Delta Connection program. And then you can work your way up through. And that's where an awful lot of the guys that are flying for Delta, that's how they got their jobs. So our program is based very much on a very strong recruiting module, a very strong 28-day training program, and then placement. Because if I've got 30 guys in class, and let's say half of them came from Carpet One or one of the other associations, And where are they going to go? Well, they're going to go right back to where they came from, because that's why they got sent, right? Well, now I've got the other half of these guys that came from the military, or they came from some other route and they didn't have a place to go home to. Somewhere about that third week, we'll sit them down and we'll say, where do you want to be when you grow up? Well, hopefully you want to be a floor covering installer. And where do you want to be? And if they say, well, we want to be in Knoxville, well, off we go to the Rolodex, and we find that there's 4 Carpet One stores in Knoxville, maybe, and there's a Lowe's workroom or 2 in Knoxville. We pick up the phone and we say, we've got 4 really good young guys here that want to go to Knoxville. And I assure you, somewhere along the line between all of those stores and all those options, we'll find them a way of placing these guys, because placement helps you with recruiting, and recruiting helps you with placement. And in the past, we didn't do the recruiting piece well. We didn't do the placement piece well. We started off doing training, and we wound up settling for certification. And then usually the certification died a slow death. God bless CFI and Jim Walker and that whole organization. They have worked against all odds, and they're still alive and well and doing great things. But what they're doing is completely different than what we do. They want to polish up the guys that are out there. Admirable, noble, grand. What we want to do is we want to add more guys, and we want to call them great helpers.